Okay, Glenn, you asked for feedback regarding episode 719 on anger and general conference. If you're asking, my opinion is your approach to the church in this episode was way too kumbaya. I got out of the church, but I still have kids that are in it, and the emotional and relational carnage that the false teachings of the church continues to perpetuate deserves action and effort to try to minimize or change that. I really appreciate so many of the things you've done with your podcast over the years, but lately it's just feels too relaxed, too let it be, and I don't think that's what's called for. I mean, yeah, I think everybody who gets out should, or everybody for that matter, should try to have as much peace and happiness in their life. And I don't think people should go around being angry all the time, but the church is wrecking families, wrecking lives, causing suicides, and just say, don't be mad, bro. It feels like dereliction. It feels like people should be doing things. I would like the best minds figuring out ways to shed light on the situation and help as many people as possible to get out of this burning building.
This is Infants on Thrones.
Baby steps.
You want someone to preach to you.
The philosophies of men.
I like magical toys.
You want religion, do you?
Mingled with humor.
I don't believe in them.
There will be many willing to preach to you the philosophies of men mingled with humor.
We are evolving.
Baby steps.
You can buy anything in this world of money.
Look for the good in everything. Look for the people who will set your soul free. It always seems impossible until it's done. Look for the good in everyone.
Here is part 2 of my interview with Adam, talking about anger. And we're going to pick up where we left off with this question about gaslighting.
So it was that kind of taking that pride and that vanity away. It's like kind of, it doesn't say anything about me that I'm still single. Yeah. It doesn't mean that I'm undesired or anything. I don't need somebody else's attention or love or affection to feel valued and worthy. It comes from within,
Yeah.
So
good. Yeah, that's a healthy attitude to take. Is it gaslighting, do you think, to make the claim that a person's anger is a result of their own pride?
Depends on the context. Like if you're saying, okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say I go to my bishop and I bring all these things forward to him, about like the truth claims I found, and I feel angry, and he's like, well, you're just being prideful. I'm like, no, this is just not true, kind of thing, So that's gaslighting.
But what if you were angry because you were prideful?
I don't know, man.
Isn't in that situation where you're angry because you've been told these things and they're not true, and now nobody's listening to you.
Yeah,
like you said earlier, they're calling you lazy, and you're not lazy. You've got a lot of pride in the research that you did and the time that you spent in it, and so that sense of pride, when he's calling you lazy, you're like, I'm not being acknowledged for who I really am, and that sense of pride is creating that anger.
Well, so for me, in my experience, I can't speak for anybody else. My anger didn't arise out of me. Like it wasn't about me. It was in my perception.
Are you sure about that, Adam?
Well, here, let me finish. It was more about the sadness that loss of, I believe these things my whole life, and somebody told me they're true and they're not, and that just makes me angry and sad and hurt and afraid and lonely and guilty and all those things. So I don't know if it's always pride, there's maybe a sense of pride there, but I think that's a natural reaction to being hurt. If somebody you loved was lying to you the whole time, there's pride there, but like, you would also feel some like shame, some fear, some sadness, some loneliness, and which would lead to anger. I don't know if it's always the vanity thing. I don't want to present it that way, because that does sound like gaslighting.
Yeah, and I don't think he's saying that it's always but he was giving that example with the married couple where both of them wanted acknowledgement. They wanted to be acknowledged for the things that they had done, and they weren't getting that acknowledgement from the other person, and so they got resentful and just like turtles retreated into their shell. And man, I've had a lot of nights like that over the years. That's not fun. It's not cool to be. And a lot of times I was doing that to myself.
Yeah.
I was doing it to myself because I was getting my feelings hurt that I wasn't being acknowledged for things that I thought that I should be acknowledged for.
Well, I want to go back to, sometimes it's not pride. Sometimes it's you're being abused by someone. You know what I'm saying? Like, if let's put it this way. Let's say this guy is a total douchebag and he makes her do all this stuff and makes her like work all the time on the house and stuff. And then he comes home and he eats her meals and then spits them out in her face, and is just yelling and screaming at her. She's not necessarily hurt because she wants to be recognized, and her ego or her whatever, her vanity. It's more about the fear, the loneliness, the hurt, so.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest from that clip that pride is always the cause of anger. No,
I wasn't saying you were. I'm just saying it could be taken that way.
Right. Yeah. No, it's not. Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the next one.
Okay.
One of the great secrets of relationship is acknowledgement. The behavior of others toward us always includes a hidden gift. Even if that behavior appears negative, there is something in it for us. Very often, that something appears in the form of a signal to us to become more aware. Let's say, for example, that somebody calls us stupid. Our natural response is one of anger. We can use the energy of that anger consciously. What is that person asking me to become more aware of? If we ask ourselves the question, we may come to the realization that we were being self-centered. We were being uncaring. We were failing to acknowledge them. And we were not being conscious and aware of what was going on in the relationship. If we constantly follow this procedure, we will come to the awareness that everyone in our life is acting as a mirror. They are really reflecting back to us what we have failed to acknowledge within ourselves. They are forcing us to look at what needs to be addressed. What aspect of our smaller self needs to be relinquished? This means that we have to constantly let go of our pride in order to undo anger, so that we can be grateful for the continual opportunities of growth with which we are presented in the course of everyday experience. To do this, we have to resist the temptation to indulge in making ourselves and others wrong.
All right, couple of key ideas in there. Let's start with this one about a hidden gift.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea that any interaction that you have with somebody, even if it's negative, there's some kind of hidden gift in there?
I'm going to say that I have almost zero relationship experience, so I don't know.
But we're not just talking about romantic relationships.
Okay.
It could be the experience that you talked about earlier today with the kid that you're working with that was yelling at you.
Yeah.
Do you see that there's a possibility of a hidden gift even in those kinds of exchanges?
I don't know. Sorry, that's a bad answer, but I don't know. Can you tell me? Can you rephrase it so I can kind of understand like what you're trying to get me to?
Well, if I say hidden gift, what do you think I mean?
I think honestly, this passive aggressiveness, meaning there's this hidden expectation that you're not communicating to somebody, and when they don't do that thing, you hold it against them, you know?
That's a gift?
Well,
You,
I
you
mean,
holding something against them as a gift? No, so what he's talking about in here is there's a learning opportunity. There's something in this exchange that I can learn.
oh, okay.
And that is a gift that's being given to me because yeah. Do you know the musical Into the Woods?
Never heard of it.
Never heard of Into the Woods. So there's all of these horrible things that happen to these people as they go into the woods. But there's a song where they sing, but now I know things I didn't know.
When he said, come in with that sickening grin, how could I know what was in store? Once his teeth were bare, though I really got scared. Well, excited and scared. But he drew me close and he swallowed me down a dark, slimy path where lie secrets that I never want to know. And when everything familiar seemed to disappear forever at the end of the path, where's Granny once again? So we wait in the dark until someone sets us free. And we're brought into the light and we're back at the start. And I know things now, many valuable things that I hadn't known before. Do not put your faith in a cape and a hood. They will not protect you the way that they should. And take extra care with strangers. Even flowers have their dangers. And the scary is exciting. Nice is different than good. Now I know, don't be scared. Granny's right, just be prepared. Isn't it nice to know a lot? And a little bit not.
I've learned something about myself. I've learned something about the world that I didn't know before. That's a hidden gift. That's
okay.
Yeah, like I thought that this exchange was just shitty, but actually I learned something from it. There's a hidden gift.
That makes more sense. Again, ADHD, I was thinking about a million other things. And I was thinking you were meaning something like they were expecting me to give them something.
No.
And there's expectation. But I was just off in bullshit land. So
no, that's okay.
That makes sense.
You not understanding it was a hidden gift because then I was able to articulate it so brilliantly.
Well, I don't want to boost your ego any more than it already is.
You can't.
But
it's shattered, man. It's shattered.
I don't know about that. So basically, yeah, like I think we have to be careful there though, because that magical thinking thing where it's like my child died, so I have to ascribe this to something in the universe or God teaching me this lesson, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, sure, that could be a way of interpreting it, but you don't have to go like supernatural or metaphysical.
I don't, but that's what I was taught to do my whole life, And
that's what you're resisting. So you don't want to. So you don't want that to be attributed to, well, God,
divine retribution, or
God's giving you challenges to make you a better person, kind of thing.
Yeah, I hate that. Fuck that.
So you've got a lot of anger around that.
Yes.
Yeah. How come?
I don't know, because it's just like, have you ever heard what's his name, Bednar's thing about like what is it called, like being okay with not being healed, and expecting that, where it's like he was saying that like he gave somebody a blessing and he said, well, you have to be okay with not being healed but by this, have you heard that before?
No.
Oh, well, you should look that up after this. Basically, I don't know, just because it's interesting.
You can tell me now.
It's interesting shit.
Is it?
It's the apologetics. Well, it's like, well, if this blessing doesn't come true and you die, it's God's will somehow, and you just have to be okay with.
I think we've gotten away from why this bothers you. I like, why are you angry? Because we had the conversation earlier, Adam, about you could either be mad or you could accept. And you had talked about some areas where you accepted instead of being mad, but this is an area where you're still mad.
Oh yeah.
So what's there that you could possibly accept, unless you just want to stay mad at it, which is cool.
I don't want to stay mad. I just still working through that,
Yeah.
of that anger of kind of, oh man, I can't really articulate it too well. It's kind of like going back to the Bednar thing and the whole thing of like, it's kind of that confirmation. I don't know, hermetically sealed argument where if this happens, then it was God. If this doesn't happen, then it was God, you know.
Well, and why does that make you angry? Why does it make you angry?
Because let's say my child dies, you know.
But don't use a hypothetical.
Okay, I don't have children, as far as I know.
I know. So, but you don't have children, and yet you are angry about this. Why?
Because I'm a human being, and we all feel anger sometimes. I don't know. I don't know why I'm angry. Don't you ever just get pissed and like you don't know why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just angry. I don't know.
So I remember an email exchange that we had last summer, and you were telling me, I think it was something about your grandmother.
Oh.
That there are things that your grandmother says that seem really dismissive to you.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing just from that limited thing that the reason that this makes you angry is that there's been times where suffering that you've experienced where you've wanted just hold space for me. You talked about holding space earlier.
Yeah.
That you didn't have that space available to you, and you were kind of told, just get over it. Because this is what God wants you to do, so get over it. And you were like, nah, that's not the response that I wanted. That's not the kind of loving, nurturing response from my family that I want.
Yeah. So now that you bring that up, that does make sense.
Yeah.
The backstory of that is that my grandpa was an abusive asshole. Who, just a bad guy. And there's this revisionist kind of mindset in my family of forgive and forget, do as Jesus would do, you know. And whenever you bring it up, they say that kind of stuff, and they tell you that you need to forgive and forget, you know. It's like, how do you forget all these things? Like, I mean, I don't want to hold on to them, but you telling me to just forgive and forget, like, fuck that.
What if it was just forgive but not forget?
So this is another anger thing. For me, forgive has to be phrased in a certain way. Like, forgive doesn't mean that I just let him off the hook. Like Christy was saying, it doesn't mean that you just kind of like brush it under the rug. It just means that you don't let those things affect you anymore. Like that anger, that hurt, that sadness.
Right.
You don't give that abuser the satisfaction of them being able to control you anymore. That's what forgive means to me in that situation.
Okay. But when you think about your grandpa now and the way that he abused your grandma, you still get angry. And when you think about the way that they do their revisionist history in the family, that makes you angry.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So
I'm angry right now, Glenn. I'm angry.
Are you angry as you were talking about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be?
Me. I don't know.
I mean, is what it is, but like, yeah, it just, man, now I'm angry. So
sorry, I didn't mean to make you angry.
It's okay.
I don't know. Pull up some porn and you can go get orange.
Still makes me angry. Still makes me angry.
All right. Well, where to go with it? So there is a clip that is coming up that's about forgiveness. So maybe we'll put a pin on this for now, because we're kind of moving towards that.
Yeah.
So we talked about this idea of a hidden gift.
Yeah.
What about the idea of other people being mirrors to you?
I actually just used this phrase today with one of my kids. Is like, they were telling me like, this person does all this shit and like they bother me and they're doing this, and I'm looking at them like, you do those things too, you know. Like, it was kind of ironic because it was like, you bug people, you try and provoke them too. And so I think the things that bother us and others can tell us what we really lack, you know. I definitely agree with that.
So when you're looking at somebody and you're getting bothered by something, that's telling you something about yourself, because you're the one getting bothered. And so there's something that you're allowing to bother you. You're the one that's creating this sense of being bothered and being angry in your own body. And so there's something that you haven't released. There's something that you haven't learned how to deal with, that this is triggering you.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
So how is the Mormon Church a mirror for you?
Oh, that's a big concept.
Yeah.
It's shown me all the areas of character development that I didn't have and developed and yet to develop, you know?
Yeah.
Showing me things that they don't want to be, you know?
Yeah.
And I'll give them some credit, showing me some things that, that was cool. That helped me.
Yeah.
You know, things like love and all that stuff, which,
well, so there's a hidden gift right there. Like whether they're showing things that you do want to be, or they're showing you things that you don't want to be, both of those are kind of gifts. And that you can go, okay, well, thank you, Mormon Church, for showing me that I don't want to be myopic.
Well, fuck them. I'm not gonna say thank you to them. But anyway,
why not?
I'm just kidding. But yeah, you're right.
Because if you feel it, if you really feel that gratitude for it, you can't really be angry anymore. And
I think you can be both. I mean, I'll give you an example. So my mission was like hell. It was just awful.
Where were you?
Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I felt like a salesperson.
You were.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize it
in a country where nobody's buying it.
Exactly. You know. So it's kind of like selling liquor here in Utah. You know,
No.
like nobody's buying it.
There's a lot more people buying liquor in Utah than there are Mormonism in Tokyo.
I'm one of those people buying liquor here. So anyway, back to the thing is that like, I got yelled at by some nasty people who had an ego that wanted to boost their status and move up in the chain of leadership. And I got gaslighted by the rules and stuff and had some traumatic, awful experiences. But I'm grateful I got to go to the place where my ancestors came from. I got to learn their language. I got to be able to meet some amazing people, you know? So there's that, it's not one or the other. It's just kind of like this whole just spectrum of shit.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I think there'll be more about this a little bit later in future clips too. So.
Okay.
All right. Here's the next clip.
All right.
One source of anger stems from the unacknowledged acts of the love that we have expressed to others. Love in this context means the everyday simple forms of lovingness that go on in every human relationship in the form of thoughtfulness, consideration, polite gestures, encouragement, and providing. Very often, an internal dialogue can go on for years about our resentment over the other person's lack of appreciation for our feelings about them. If this is so for us, it must be the case for others as well. There are people, therefore, in our life who are walking around with an endless mental stream of thoughts about us, having to do with our lack of appreciation of their feelings for us. This whole arena of anger can be offset and prevented when we see the enormous value of simply acknowledging the gestures of others toward us. This means to acknowledge all of their communications to us. For instance, if friends call us on the phone, we thank them for calling us. The reason for doing this is that it makes the other persons feel complete and secure with us. It is an acknowledgement of their value in our life, and everyone feels pleased when we acknowledge their value. By this simple mechanism of acknowledgement, it is possible, within a matter of days, to transform all of one's relationships in a rather dramatic way. This acknowledgement does not have to go on in the outer world, but can take place within oneself. As we examine our relationships, we can ask ourselves, what have I failed to acknowledge in those with whom I have daily contact? It is a very valuable experience to pick someone in our life who in our view is critical toward us, and now, within ourselves, begin to look at how we have failed to acknowledge them. We surrender all of our negative feelings about them, and we begin to give them credit, affirming their value to us. Their value may simply be that they are a spur to our emotional growth and development. The nagging spouse or scowling neighbor is trying to say something. Almost always in this sort of situation, such persons are not feeling acknowledged for the contribution they are making to our life. Once their value to us has been acknowledged, the nagging stops.
All right. So that was a pretty long one for a guy with ADHD.
Yeah, that was.
The reason I grabbed that clip is because I liked what it said about appreciation, and the role that appreciation can play in diffusing anger, whether you're expressing appreciation to people who you think deserve it, or if you're expressing appreciation for people who are doing things, they're a spur in your side and they're blocking your advancement, and you're using them as a mirror to say, oh, thank you for showing me where I still have some internal work to do.
No, so there's some more anger arising because if my neighbor, I don't have a neighbor named Jerry, I'm just using the name Jerry. Let's say Jerry's an asshole to me every day and he parks his car on my parking strip, over, so I can't really get through, and I see Jerry in the street. I'm not going to be like, thank you, Jerry, for just, testing my patience, my courage or whatever. No, I'm going to be like, fuck you, Jerry, get out of here, kind of thing. Oh, it's kind of like that.
So you're going to feel anger towards Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that healthy to be feeling that anger towards Jerry?
No, it's not, but that's just how it is. So,
but it's how it is right now. But is that something that you could work on and resolve? I mean, you've got this shit. You want to get rid of it. You don't want to be walking around constipated, and every time you see Jerry, you feel like, ugh.
Sure, but for right now, Jerry's the asshole who's parking my spot. So
okay.
So it's kind of like that Job, Job in the Bible. I hate that. You have to be grateful to God because he's punishing you and just whipping you and all that kind of stuff.
But so
I don't. That's a trigger.
Let's get back to Jerry for a minute, because let's say that every day for a year you walk outside and he's parked in that place and it just pisses you off. So you always have just a shitty day because it starts off with Jerry in your space. But over time, you can be mad or you can accept it. And you just kind of come to accept, okay, I'm not going to be able to park in that spot. He's going to be in that spot. Yeah, he's an asshole. I've asked him many times. He doesn't change it. But, at the end of the year, it doesn't bother you anymore. And you kind of learn to be more accepting of people who do things that, aren't really what you want to do. So you've become a little bit more flexible in that way. You've become a little bit more difficult to trigger in anger. And that's because Jerry was being an asshole to you. You couldn't look at that and go, wow, Jerry, you won't appreciate this, but man, you helped me so much. Thank you.
I won't go so far as thank you, but the acceptance thing I really like,
Well, maybe someday, Adam, that's the goal.
No,
to get to the thank you. Yeah.
I'm good. I don't need to thank him. I'm thankful.
But you want to be enlightened though, right? You want to rise up the scale of energetic frequency.
Sure, but I don't want to.
You want to vibrate with Jesus and Buddha?
I mean, I don't know. I'm stubborn. But yeah, that acceptance thing, because I deal with difficult kids that call me names and they do things leave stuff. So I have a desk that's in a shared space where they are frequently, and they mess up my desk or they rip my name tag off my door, all that kind of shit. Yeah. I don't take it personally. I don't let it get to me. That acceptance. I think that's one of my strengths is accepting that people are going to be assholes and I'm not going to let it ruin my day.
Yeah.
But
so why is it hard then to be grateful to them because they have been a mirror to you where you're seeing yourself reflected back in them, oh, I'm getting upset at something that they did. I don't want to be upset. I want to be more flexible. I want to have more patience. And so you grow that patience and you go, okay, there is a hidden gift in this relationship. They have helped me learn how to be more patient. And whether you say thank you to them or whether you just feel like you're thankful to them, don't you think that would kind of feel good?
No.
You should try it. It does.
I'm just kidding. So I know I'm being
awesome, man. It's
know
so
I know.
Cool to
I know.
Get to that place where people really can't bug you that easily.
I'm mainly playing devil's advocate here. I actually, that's one of my strengths. I'm really difficult to bother. Like I don't get bothered. Like at my job, I've worked there for like 2 years or something. I can't really recall any time that a kid really truly made me angry.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just that acceptance of this is how the kids are, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm not going to let Jerry parking his fucking car on my thing get me down to the point where it's ruining my day. And, you know, like, why? But I'm not going to thank him for being an asshole. Like,
well, maybe someday.
No.
You know, have you ever, what's that Harry Potter movie where Dumbledore and Voldemort are fighting in the, whatever. It's the one where Sirius Black dies. Spoiler alert. But do you remember they're like having this epic wizard battle, and where like Voldemort sends all these shards of broken glass towards Dumbledore, and Dumbledore like has this force field that as soon as it hits the force field and it comes towards him, it turns into sand. It just drops there. Like with fire and water. Like I've thought about this idea of, wouldn't it be cool if you could have some kind of a force field around you where somebody being an asshole to you, it comes right in, but it transforms from being shit to, I don't know, flowers or petals. It just drops of it. Just doesn't phase you. It just doesn't bother you at all.
Yeah. So that guy that I referenced earlier in the show, Christian Conti, he actually talks about how when there's like people throwing hot garbage at you, you just have like a force field around you. You protect your mind. And I like that, of just not letting things, and I'm good at that, like detaching myself from that, not getting bothered by things.
I gotta tell you, Adam, someday you'll figure out the role that gratitude towards others plays in creating that force field, and you'll get really good at it. I'm prophesying now.
I don't think so, Joseph Smith. Well, I don't think so.
We'll see. All right. So on another clip, this one kind of has to deal with this whole force field idea.
Okay.
Another way of preventing anger is by making a decision within oneself no longer to accept invalidation from others or the small aspect of oneself. This decision can be in the form of a firm declaration. I will no longer accept invalidation from myself or others. When this is coupled with the habit of acknowledging all that is positive within ourselves and others, relationships rapidly change, their potential sources of anger having been removed.
All right, what'd you think about that one, Adam? It was short.
I mean, I can see some of that, you know, like I'll give you an example. There's this kid that used to really bother me, and now I like him. Like, he's funny, and I appreciate those quirky things, but they used to really bother me, you know. But now I can appreciate who he is and acknowledge that where he's coming from is where he's coming from, you know, like understanding him. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah. What if you could create that kind of a force field, would you want to do that for the Mormon Church, where there really isn't anything that the Mormon Church could do that would bother you?
I mean, I struggle with the whole turning the shit into rose petals thing, because like my perspective of it, and maybe this is not true, is it's kind of like being like Manson family type, kumbaya type, where it's like, thank you for hurting me so much, you know, like I struggle with that still.
Well, let's not do imaginary shit to flowers thing, and let's go back to the example that you gave earlier where people are calling you lazy. And you know that you're not lazy.
Yeah.
And so are you going to let them calling you lazy bother you or not?
No, I'm not.
No.
Doesn't. So
they were throwing shit at you.
Yeah.
Calling you lazy. And you're turning it into flowers going, no, I know I'm not lazy. Well, you've got a problem with that?
But I'm not going to thank them for throwing shit at me. You know, I'm grateful
You could.
So I'll put it this way. I'm grateful that I have reached the point where that doesn't bother me, and I'm grateful for the experiences that have led there, where I can kind of just detach myself from that ego, from that, and that's as far as I am right now. Like, I'm grateful that I am hard to fluster. I've learned how to, like, that part. I'm grateful for that, but I don't know. There's just something there that's like accepting, like, I don't know, like it's kind of like if the rebel forces in Star Wars accepted that the Empire had taken over all of their planets and stuff, and be like, thank you, Darth Vader, thank you, Emperor Palpatine, for accepting or for defeating my forces and destroying everything I love and care about. Thank you so much. Like, I struggle with that. So.
Well, okay. I don't know where to take the Star Wars analogy. I'm a little disappointed in that. But I want to get to this next clip.
Wait. No, we have to revisit that.
The what?
Why are you disappointed in it?
I'm disappointed that I'm not able to provide a response to you.
Why not?
Because I can't think of one. Trying to think of.
Are you a Trekkie?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank God.
No. Okay, so let's try to play with the Star Wars.
So I have stumped the great Glenn.
You didn't stump me. I'm just not that interested in it. Let me try it. Okay. So what you're saying is that Luke wouldn't thank Darth Vader for cutting off his hand.
Oh, I got it exactly. Okay, this will probably relate to you.
Give me one.
Okay, where did you serve your mission again? What part of Japan?
Well, it was the Okayama mission, but like down in Hiroshima.
Okay. So, do you expect the people that were affected by the bomb to be grateful to the Americans for killing everybody they knew and loved? And, if they survived.
You're asking the wrong question. No, I don't expect that.
That's what I'm saying.
So ask me the question, if they did, would they be happier?
I don't fucking know, man.
So that's the question. I think if they did, if they, because I've been to, have you been to Peace Park in Hiroshima?
I've never been to Hiroshima. My ancestors are from there. I've never been there.
Oh, really?
I've just been to Tokyo.
I loved Hiroshima.
Yeah,
I've been to Peace Park many times, and they've got a really great museum there. Like, what? Do you know the story of the 1,000 Cranes?
Oh, hell yeah. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Sadako is one of I'm going to name my daughter Sadako if I have a daughter.
Oh, cool. So that was the girl that had the radiation poisoning she was told that if she made 1,000 cranes, then she would survive. And she got to like 984 or something like that. Do you remember what the exact number was?
She didn't make it and she died.
Yeah, she didn't make it and she died. But there's a statue dedicated to her at Peace Park, and school children, when they come on their field trips, they bring paper cranes to like help her get to the 1,000. It's such a sweet story, and like it really unifies everybody. So there's all of these paper cranes around this place, and you could look and say, boy, I'm really grateful that we were able to have this kind of unifying experience around a cool story like the 1,000 Cranes, because it's bringing people together and showing the compassion. And I'm thankful for that. No, I'm not thankful that a hydrogen bomb was dropped and killed a lot of people. And
there you go. That's what I'm saying, though.
I'm not grateful that happened, but I'm grateful that there's this opportunity. I'm grateful that we responded to it the way that we did. I'm grateful that we're not ever going to do that again. Yeah.
So I'm there with you. Like, so I get emotional when I think about that story.
Yeah.
Because that's, I can't even talk about it. I get emotional.
But if you ever do get a chance to go through that,
I will.
Museum, there are sections where they do focus on gratitude for the thing that happened, just as a way of like, we're glad that this happened to show the world that it can never happen again. Like that is a message that's built into that museum.
Yeah. And in some ways it was a good thing, but we won't get into that. It's complicated.
This next clip that I'm going to play, it's pretty long.
Okay.
And so the Hawkins book is going to talk about chronic resentment and the way that if you continue to stay in anger, it has a negative impact on your physical health. And then it talks about forgiveness kind of as a way to alleviate that pressure. And it makes reference to a study that was done at Stanford, the Stanford Forgiveness Study, I think is what it's called. And so I put in a clip from Fred Luskin, who was the one that ran that study as well. And he gives a definition of forgiveness that I'll want you to listen to and see how you feel about it, because we were talking about that earlier. Okay, so here's the next clip.
Chronic resentment. Chronic, unrecognized anger and resentment reemerge in our life as depression, which is anger directed against oneself. If pushed further into the unconscious, it can reemerge as psychosomatic illnesses. Migraine headaches, arthritis, and hypertension are frequently cited examples of chronic suppressed anger. These symptoms are very often alleviated as people learn how to let go of their inner anger. The Stanford University Forgiveness Project confirms the cardiac benefits of relinquishing anger and resentment. In the program, parents of children killed in the Protestant Catholic violence in Ireland learned how to let go of their bitterness toward the enemy. Measurements of their cardiac health and physical stamina showed significant improvement. Luskin, 2003.
That's Fred Luskin, who ran the Stanford Forgiveness Experiment. And here's a clip from Fred Luskin talking about forgiveness as an antidote to anger.
There are two ways that I have defined forgiveness. The simplest is to simply say that no matter what has happened in any of our lives, at this moment we can be at peace. That forgiveness is the experience of being at peace right now, no matter what story, no matter what drama, no matter what has occurred 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago. And so I refer to forgiveness as an assertive, a creation of peace in the present. The second aspect of it, that's the most simple and that's the easiest for people to grasp, that the second part of it is that we are the ones who created the lack of peace. So we're the only ones who can remedy that situation, that life happened and then we objected to life. And it was our objecting to our own life, saying, no, this is not the way this life should have been, it should have been that way. Our objecting to our own life causes emotional and physical and spiritual turmoil. Forgiveness is the resolution of our objection. It really has nothing to do with life or the people in it, because life just happens in all of its myriad of experiences and arisings, and we object to part of it. So forgiveness is, in that context, again, it's making peace when you didn't get what you want. And that allows an umbrella. The first part of it is the most important, which is you're making peace. But the second part is you're making peace with some situation or experience where you didn't get what you want and you objected to it.
All right. So what did you think about his definition of forgiveness there, Adam?
I like it. I mean, I think that, yeah, forgiveness is allowing yourself to feel peace. And it's not about, like you said, condoning or accepting like terrible, awful acts, you know, like I think it's more
children that were killed as a result of
radiation,
like
and
terrorist bombing. I mean, that was the study that they did.
Yeah.
Working with the parents to create peace in their mind.
Yeah. It's not about, you know, like I'll use an example that was in my lifetime, 9/11. Like, it's not about like thanking the terrorists for crashing, you know, that's awful. You know, the 3,000 or so people that died, you know, that's awful. But it made us stronger as a people. And I think there's the peace is the peace and everything is kind of the gratitude that you got through that experience, and that you became the person that you became, and that through that loss,
that you could learn the technique of forgiveness, that you could learn how to create peace in your own mind even when the world is burning down around you.
I agree with you there, so you got me. I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's something that you can be grateful for. And I agree with you. I can't see myself going, thank you, Terrace, for flying into the World Trade Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. I'm grateful for you.
Yeah. But to be able to say we're stronger as a country, or we've got this as a result of it that we wouldn't have had before, and to have some gratitude for that, I think that's within the range of something I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
It's really tricky. And the way that he talks about this here, life happened.
Yeah.
And life happens in a lot of different ways, and we don't always get what we want. We don't always like the way that things happen. So it's again going back to that statement of you can be mad or you can accept this shitty thing happened.
Yeah.
And I can stay in a place of just being totally distraught. I can stay down in grief.
Yeah.
I can stay in anger. Or I can release that. I can let that grief that's real, acknowledge it. And every time it comes up, because I'm sure with these parents who lost kids that they didn't just go, oh, I've forgiven it, and now I never feel sad again.
Yeah.
Or now I never feel angry that this happened again. Of course, those times are still going to come up. It's that acceptance of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sad right now because this happened.
Yeah.
I'm angry right now because this happened. And accepting that and letting it pass on its own. Not doing things that are going to stir it up and strengthen it and make it
for
grow.
Sure. Like I'll give you an example of me. I could be angry. Well, I will say that my people did start a war with America, but I could be angry that my ancestral city was burned, and the worst disaster in human history happened. The worst act of violence ever happened, numbers wise, and just the effect. But I'm grateful that the city overcame that, and that those buildings that are still standing, that are shattered and just broken, those are kind of symbols of who we are, and Sadako is an example of hope and peace and growth.
Yeah.
I'm emotional right now. I still get emotional when I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
And talking about her. So
yeah. And you can look back on those kinds of acts, and you can condemn those kinds of acts without being angry, without still having anger for it. You can say, this is not okay. And we are going to put all of our best efforts into creating a world where this never happens again.
Yeah.
But do it from a place of hope. Do it from a place of love. Do it from a place of compassion, rather than the anger where you just want to destroy.
Yeah.
And you're feeling hatred.
So it's kind of like, to use, have you ever read any of Elie Wiesel's books? The Holocaust survivor, like Night, or there's a bunch of, he's written 30 books. He survived the Holocaust and writes about it. He's is he gonna, he survived that experience and hated it, obviously, but is he gonna attribute that to every single German that he meets? Or that just reminded me of that. You can condemn those awful, shitty, terrible acts and still move on. In the sense that you're not gonna hold it against every single person in the German Republic or whatever.
And the reason why I chose this clip, and then there's a follow-up clip where we hear from Luskin again, is because when I'm talking about forgiveness and even expressing gratitude, it's not for anybody other than the person who's feeling anger. because holding on to that anger does have it has impacts on your health. And it hurts you. And being angry at somebody else doesn't really do anything to that other person, but it does something to you. And so being able to create that peace in yourself, that really is the way to get healthy. And it's kind of like when the oxygen masks drop down on the airplane and they say, if you're an adult, take it yourself before you give it to a child, like learn how to get that peace of mind so that you can help other people with the peace of mind. So this next clip, it's also a little long, but it's about the healing nature of forgiveness versus the harmful nature of anger. So I'm going to play this.
Forgiveness healed their hearts, literally. Anger and resentment have a deleterious effect on the body, emotions, energy flow, and on the synchronization of the brain hemispheres. Anger kills the angry person, not the so-called enemy.
Some of the brain scanning research has shown centers in the brain for altruism and kind of loving kindness, and centers that light up when we think about revenge. That human beings come with the whole package. And so there have to be some kind of evolutionary place for it all. The question, I think, is for each of us or for cultures, how much do you want to be reactive and how much do you want to be thinking creatively about where's the appropriate manifestation of, say, aggression or tolerance? And that's what we don't do very well. I mean, it's clear that if you are a parent and somebody's about to harm your child, you want to stop them. And you want to stop them with everything you got available to you. And for an hour or two afterwards, you're going to be processing through that threat, and you're going to be processing through the horror of possibly losing your child, and even the horror of what that brought out in you. So there's this whole thing, and then you're going to have some residual resentment towards the person who initiated that. That, to me, is normal, adaptive human experience. Then I believe we go off into the maladaptive, which is we start telling 30 people about how unlucky we are and how unfair it is that that happened to us. And then we label that person as evil or bad because they caused us to have this experience, instead of us continuing to process it through until we're back at a less prejudiced point. But we retain the choice all the time as to what we do past the biological imperative. And the biological imperative is strong. You have to protect people, and you have to steer yourself through some very difficult waters, which require some defenses and some aggression and some assertiveness. It's just the question is, when and how do you cease that? And I believe human beings have done a very poor job of that.
Yeah, so he's talking about where do you draw the line? When you feel that anger and it spurs you to action and you really do need to take it, versus when you hold on to it, and what are the negative impacts that has on your overall health if you're holding on to anger for too long?
Yeah, I'll tell you an example of this. When he was talking about all this stuff he was talking about, I was thinking of this lady that I know in my neighborhood who her son died in a tragic accident where he fell out of a car right by my house, and he hit his head on the pavement and died. And they were going 40 miles an hour. And at the time, the younger son was fighting with the older son, and he felt bad about that. I'm sure he still does. He tried to commit suicide multiple times. Just a bunch of shitty things. But that lady, she never got over that. Even to this day, she let it ruin her marriage. She let it affect her relationships with everybody. She held on to that toxic, and you can still feel it when talking to her. It's just that toxic, just destructive anger.
And the grief that she must feel. Yeah.
And I feel bad for her, and she has every right to feel how she does, but you can just see that
Yeah.
It's
so if you accept that this is true, with these negative emotions, these negative feelings having a negative impact on the body.
Yeah.
If you accept that as true and you really do want to help people,
yeah,
what would you be telling people? What would you be asking them to do?
Well, I do this every day. And I will do this for the rest of my life because I'm going to be a therapist. But tell them to do what we're talking about. Let go of that pain, that toxic anger, that, while maintaining boundaries, of course, because you don't want to let an abuser back in your life. You don't want to put yourself in risky situations,
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. So do you think that there is times when it's okay to hold on to anger? Like just you're justified in maintaining this anger and not forgiving, not creating that sense of peace in your mind?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like telling people how they should feel. And I don't like dealing in shoulds and should
let's just
nots,
talk about you. Let's just talk about you.
I mean, I want to be happy and I don't want to hold on to all these feelings. So I would say no. Like, I don't think you should hold on to things that you've moved past and work through. It's different when you're working through them at the time, and that anger is effective and it helps you set boundaries and move on from things. But after that, that anger is just a thorn in your side.
Yeah. All right. Well, I still got several clips. Let's try and get through them pretty quickly so that we can wrap this up, because this next one is about justifiable anger.
Okay.
The mind would like us to think that there is such a thing as justifiable anger, which takes the form of moralistic indignation. If we look at moralistic indignation, we will see that it is propped up by vanity and pride. We like to think how right we are in a situation and how wrong the other persons are. We get a passing, cheap little satisfaction out of that, but our muscle testing proves what the cost is to our overall emotional and physical economy. The price we pay for chronic anger and resentment is sickness and premature death.
So justifiable anger. If you're holding on to chronic anger, it's just going to hurt you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Messages like this kind of scare me, honestly, with today's cancel culture.
Yeah.
Because it really does seem like there are a whole lot of people out there that have created a personal identity and a group identity around indignation and outrage. And if you tell people that they shouldn't do it, you're going to get canceled.
Yeah.
So it makes me nervous.
I've honestly, I have seen that happen in ex-Mormon community.
Yeah.
Where you can't win. It's a lose-lose if you chime in. If you don't chime in, nothing changes, So
yeah,
I agree with you there.
Yeah. All right. And this next one is related to it.
Okay.
We need to be aware that we have unwittingly become injustice collectors. The media reports are full of this form of chronic resentment. We see injustice collecting in international relations, where making the other nation wrong is actually a primary objective. We are unconsciously programmed to believe that injustice collecting is normal. In contrast to this habitual pattern, which is destructive and weakening, the letting go technique frees us from keeping close account of the wrongs made against us. Our time and attention are freed up to see the beauty and opportunity around us.
All right. Getting a little groovy on that one again.
Oh, yeah.
So, injustice collecting. Do you have any experience with that?
Well, I was talking, like, have you ever seen the cartoon series Avatar: The Last Airbender?
My kids love it. I've watched like the first 2 episodes or something. I haven't watched it, so just the first couple episodes.
You need to watch that.
Yeah,
like I know you're an adult and everything.
Too. Yeah,
but there's all these nations, and the Fire Nation's the bad guy.
Yeah,
and the protagonist, one of them, is Water Nation, and her mom was killed when she was young, and she's facing that anger. And there's this character that's the Fire Nation person, and he's trying to change. And she's still angry at him, and she can't forgive him, And it kind of plays on that whole concept that fire destroys, but water doesn't destroy like fire does. It's kind of, they play them off each other. But yeah, I think in terms of like injustice, like revenge and stuff, it's talking about how if you try and seek revenge, if you try and go, you're just going to burn the world down.
Yeah.
So
I feel like my experience of podcasting, first with Mormon Expression and then Infants on Thrones, is that there have been a lot of injustice collectors that I've interacted with, and I've done it myself.
Yeah.
And trying to find, what's the big injustice now that we can shine a spotlight on and do a smackdown on. And that's one of the things when I look at what I've done, like I don't want to feel bad about it or anything. It's just like I want to be careful that I'm not being an injustice collector in this way, and promoting the injustice, because I think that only tells part of the story. It doesn't tell the whole story, and it leads to this chronic anger that I really want to distance myself from. Chronic anger, perpetual chronic anger. I don't know. That's where I'm at, Adam.
Yeah, same.
Because what's the point of holding on to anger?
It's like that fire and firebending, it just destroys.
Yeah.
It can't create anything.
All right, just a few more clips.
What is the point of surrounding ourselves with negative thought forms about those we view as enemies? Why go out of our way to hold on to them as enemies by stockpiling resentments and negativity in ourselves?
Yeah. Do you see a benefit?
I'll share an experience real quick.
Sure.
Just with regards to the Japanese American identity, and in intersection with Mormonism. So my family was mistreated by Mormons during the war, and the fact that they're Mormons doesn't really, it's just a coincidental thing, because it could have been any group of Americans, because there's a lot of anger there directed towards my people. And I grew up and I held on to that anger, that bitterness of the way the Mormons treated my family, and it just consumed me, and I held on to that for years. And when I finally let that go and let that just kind of fade, I was a lot happier.
Yeah. Well, and the question is, why would you want to hold on to that? And I think an answer might be, you referenced this earlier, you don't want to let abusers back into your life.
Yeah.
And so you might want to be vigilant and say, well, I don't want to forget, the whole forgive and forget. I don't want to forget because I don't want to let these people back in my life. But then there's that question, by continuing to focus on it, are you continuing to keep that thing in your life? Are you continuing to keep that anger in your heart, still allowing yourself to be triggered by these things? Are you still able to heal or not? And I don't know the answer to that question.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the answer either, because I don't. What I do know is that, like, I had a thought. I was watching I reference shows a lot and stuff. It's just how I think, how I process reality.
Yeah.
I was watching a show about a serial killer who killed this lady's daughter, and she was consumed by hate and anger. And she created an organization actually to kind of help people. And all this time she was hunting the serial killer, and she kind of became the thing that she was trying to hunt, in the fact that she destroyed a lot of lives, and she destroyed a lot of peace that she could have had by becoming what she was trying to destroy.
All right, 2 more clips here, Adam.
Okay.
Another thing that dissipates anger is our mere willingness to relinquish it. Willingness is our overall decision to find a better way, to stop relying on anger, and to move up to courage and acceptance. This willingness already starts the process of relinquishing anger. As students of the martial arts are well aware, anger indicates weakness and vulnerability. It is seen as a tool that we are handing to our opponent.
What do you think about that? Do you think that's true, that when you're angry, you're basically handing a tool to your opponent?
I was just actually talking to my kids about this because a lot of them are from like the hood, you know, and the hood mindset is kind of like, if I if I basically, what am I trying to say here? The anger is a strength because I'm not going to let anybody walk all over me, you know, and that I use this as a tool, and it's just kind of, you know, it's something that I need to have. When in reality, I told them like letting go of that anger isn't weakness. Like that's strength, because that anger is just going to get you bad places, you know?
Do they believe you?
Some of them do.
Yeah.
Because they've seen the effects that their anger has had on their lives, you know, where it's gotten them. So
when I used to play tennis with my little brother, who is a much better tennis player than I am by far, and this is going back a long time ago, but he couldn't beat me because I'd always find a way to get into his head. And I could tell when he started getting angry, and I'd kind of like needle at that, and then he'd always fall apart. So I mean, that's my one that comes to the top of my head anecdotal. All right, so here's the last clip.
Okay,
Adam.
Anger is binding, not freeing. It connects us to another person and holds them in our life pattern. We are stuck in the negative pattern until we let go of the energy of anger and its little payoffs of righteous indignation, feeling wronged, and the desire for revenge. Anger may force someone to be physically distant from us, but psychically it binds them to us more closely, until we fully relinquish the anger and resentment. Relinquishing anger brings us many benefits. We are free to experience emotional comfort and ease, gratitude for the daily opportunities to grow and heal, mutual caring with another without subtle strings attached, improvement in health, and more life energy. These breakthroughs allow us to move up to a more effective and effortless state of inner freedom.
Put down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore.
You're ready for the podcast to be over now, aren't you?
No, I just like dancing.
Pavlovian. Yeah. So what did you think of that last clip?
I think it's true. Like when you dwell on that, like that lady in the show, like she couldn't let go of that person that had hurt her, you know, and it was weighing on her and it was hurting her.
Yeah.
It was hurting her relationships. Her husband left her and he couldn't stand her anymore.
What does it say about people who have left the church but haven't really left the church? You know, there's that stupid quote, you can leave it, but you can't leave it alone. Stupid. But it is. It's true. If you're still angry at it, if you're still holding resentment and it could still get under your skin, what are you doing? Why are you giving it that power over you?
You know, I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people by saying anything, whether it's yes or no, whatever. So I'm just going to give you my straight up honest answer.
All right.
Like,
it's about time.
I'm reaching to that point where I just don't care.
Yeah.
You know, like they can say something and it's not going to affect me. Like they can say that I'm going to lose my this or that, you know, in the eternities. And it's just kind of words. But then I also acknowledge like the hurt that does to other people, you know, like I acknowledge that some people have committed suicide over what has been said before, you know, especially LGBTQ youth, you know, so there's a balance there that we have to find where we're not bitter, angry ex-Mormons, but we're not just leaving our community stranded.
You just opened a huge can of worms, Pandora box sized. So can you forgive the Mormon church for these suicides, these LGBTQ kids that committed suicide, as a result of the teachings?
Fuck no.
And so you can't create peace in your own mind because this thing happened that, like the world happens and you didn't like it.
Okay, now you're using my words against me. I'll phrase it this way. I can use that anger, that hurt, constructively to advocate for those people.
Yeah.
And to prevent that in the future.
How are you going to prevent it?
Well, I mean, prevent's a strong word because you can't prevent anything, but help people who are struggling to get help and the resources that they need. You know what I'm saying? Like I can use it to create things.
Do know what you're saying because you're making social work a career choice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So you're turning that compassion that you have into what you want to do for the rest of your life and working with underprivileged populations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
and not from a place of anger, but motivated by the anger that you felt of being discriminated.
Yeah, for sure.
In your life.
It's kind of like that. You can use that anger to go and throw eggs at the church or the building or whatever, or you can go and help other people who are suffering, who need someone there for them.
Eggs. They need eggs. So what are you going to waste the eggs by throwing them at a church? You're going to cook the eggs and feed them to the hungry people.
I'm going to feed them to the hungry people.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So Adam, how is this? You've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
How did it measure up? Is it everything you'd hoped for? Did it fit your desire meter? Or are you still craving and disappointed as a result of your desire?
It was like holding in a long shit and just letting it out at the end of the day.
You?
Yeah.
So you feel that satisfied?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. All right. So now that we've done this, we've spent however many hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes or so doing this. What is Glenn's way now? Glenn's way of dealing with anger. Do you have a better sense of that now?
Hard to define because it's so personal.
Yeah.
I was just being asinine and like teasing you, like I don't have a way. Like I agree with you, man. Like I think we agree.
Yeah.
So
cool. All right. Well, thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
It was fun doing this. I enjoyed putting all those clips together and preparing and enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on and for listening.
For sure. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Okay. See ya.
Good night. See ya.
You too.
All right. Hey, that was fun, huh? Now, before I wrap up this 2-part series, let's revisit that initial voice message from Fred, because I got some things I want to say in response now.
Okay, Glenn, you asked for feedback regarding episode 719 on anger and general conference. If you're asking, my opinion is your approach to the church in this episode was way too kumbaya. I got out of the church, but I still have kids that are in it, and the emotional and relational carnage that the false teachings of the church continues to perpetuate deserves action, an effort to try to minimize or change that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Fred, and the action and the effort that I personally take every single day to try to minimize and change this is directed first and foremost towards the emotional and relationship carnage that me and my Mormon-formed brain continue to perpetuate on other people. I ask myself, what false teachings from the church are still unexamined and unresolved in me? So, is it that I'm right and others are wrong? Because that's something that I noticed in the Mormon church that I didn't like. Am I still doing that in my life? Is it that I have the truth and they don't? Is it that worthiness is based on doing things the right way instead of doing things the wrong way? Is it that we live in a black and white world? Or that my duty is to convert the world to be more righteous? That I can make truth claims based on how I feel rather than what's verifiable with evidence? those are things that I want to make sure I have weeded out in my own mind so that I don't unintentionally go out and start doing the same kind of stuff to other people that the Mormon Church is doing, or that I did when I was a more active, non-questioning believer of the Mormon Church.
I really appreciate so many of the things you've done with your podcast over the years, but lately it's just feels too relaxed, too let it be, and I don't think that's what's called for.
Okay, that is very fair, Fred. Now, I laughed earlier when Adam listened to this and he said, ouch, and he said that this was a rebuke, but I don't really see it as a rebuke. I mean, because it's your response, and that's totally valid. This is what happens when my words, which have been formed by my limited experience in life, hits your ears, and then your brain compares what I said to all of the limited experiences in your life, and you react to the tone of the podcast and the way that you have, which is valid. It's how you feel. It's how the podcast is to you and to many others, and to me as well, really, because the truth is my tone is more relaxed, and it's because I'm more relaxed. The podcast is more let it be because I'm more let it be. You know, it's not my job to change the church. I couldn't do it even if I wanted to. There isn't anything that I can do to make the church own up to its mistakes and become a more kind, responsible, honest institution. But if I'm looking at the church as a mirror, what am I learning about myself when I criticize the church? I'm learning that I need to own up to my mistakes, that I need to make myself a more kind, responsible, honest human being. So that's a hidden gift. Thank you for showing me that hidden gift, Mormon Church.
I mean, yeah, I think everybody who gets out should, or everybody for that matter, should try to have as much peace and happiness in their life. And I don't think people should go around being angry all the time, but the church is wrecking families, wrecking lives, causing suicides, and just say, don't be mad, bro, feels like dereliction.
Now, you know, I could argue with you here that the church is not wrecking families. And, okay, yeah, I actually will for a second here, because the church isn't doing that. Some members of the church, not all members, but some members choose to be super rigid and blindly loyal to dogma, rather than being flexible and compassionate to others who they don't really have any answers for. So is it the church? Is the church the main problem here? Or is it rigidity and intolerance that's the problem? I think it's rigidity. I think it's intolerance. I think that exists in the minds of the members. So once again, it's a hidden gift. It teaches me that rigidity and intolerance can hurt others. So if I don't want to hurt others, I should be less rigid and less intolerant. Thanks for the hidden gift again. And Fred, I'm not just saying, don't be mad, bro, am I? Like, I'm saying, don't stay mad any longer than you need to be mad, because when you're mad, that harms you. And I care about you. I don't want you to harm yourself. You've been harmed enough already. I'm saying, put down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore. I'm also saying, be honest and precise as much as possible. Now, I don't deny that the church teaches its members to prioritize certain things and to devalue other things, and that certainly contributes to the wrecking of families, the wrecking of lives, and even suicides by members who just can't take it anymore. And I do want all of that to stop. But how are we going to make that stop, Fred? What is the solution? What's the reality here? And am I not going to allow myself to have peace in my heart and in my mind until all of that stops? That's crazy. I don't have to be angry. You know, how is me being angry going to make that stop? And how is me not being angry at it a way of allowing it to continue? You see the harm that the church does. And I know some of the reasons personally why you feel that way, Fred. I know some of the experiences that you've experienced, things that we've talked about, that I understand that you've been deeply wounded by the church, by people in the church. And, okay, this is a harsh reality, but I believe it's an undeniable reality. Overall, the church helps more people in more ways than it hurts people. I mean, it has to. Otherwise, everyone would see the harm and just walk away. But they don't. Why? Because there's a value to the church that's missing from the wrecking families, wrecking lives characterization. You aren't wrong that it does those things, but you are wrong if you think that that's all that it does, or that it's even the vast majority of what it does. So it's not being totally honest to paint the church in just that way. It's more than that. Now, I know that saying, look for the good, is going to sound like more kumbaya to you, but I'm going to keep saying it because I care about you, because I want your wounds to heal. And I know from experience that the kind of forgiveness that Fred Luskin researched at Stanford has worked wonders for me in my life. So maybe it could work wonders for you as well. If you're willing to give up that anger, to reframe the way that you see the church, and to search for more loving ways to take action with it, I think you could find more peace. That's my opinion.
It feels like people should be doing things. I would like the best minds figuring out ways to shed light on the situation and I'll help as many people as possible to get out of this burning building.
Okay, and what qualifies as a best mind in your mind? Would it be a mind that is free of bias? A mind that sees the big picture? A mind that is compassionate, fair, honest, reasonable? A mind that can diagnose a root cause and take a compassionate action? You know, a kumbaya kind of mind? Or would you prefer a mind that's full of
revenge, outrage, indignation, fury, jealousy, vindictiveness, spite, hatred, contempt, wrath, argumentativeness, hostility, sarcasm, impatience, frustration, negativity, aggression, violence, revulsion, meanness, rebellion, explosive behavior, agitation, abusiveness, abrasiveness, smoldering, sullenness, pouting, and stubbornness.
You see where I'm coming with that? The burning building that I want to help people get out of, Fred, is the burning building of an anger-infested mind. At least that's the burning building that I want to avoid with my own mind, which may or may not qualify as one of the best minds, but it's a good one, a relaxed, peaceful, and hopeful one.
Yeah, don't be mad, but geez, don't just let it go. I think attention and work needs to continue to be poured into trying to bring truth to light, bring truth to light, bring truth to light, bring truth to light, and help people out. That's my opinion.
Amen, Fred. And the truth that I see is that holding on to unresolved chronic anger hurts the angry person far more than it helps anyone in need of help. And in many cases, I think, it makes the situation worse. So that's my response to you, Fred. That's where I'm coming from. That's why I want this podcast, Infants on Thrones, to be a place of laughter, joy, healing, but not a place that keeps fomenting rage and anger. I want to heal from that. I want to move on past the anger phase and not be something that people come to and they're like, yeah, rah, 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 anger. So that's how I feel. Fred, thank you very much for recording and sending me that message. And anybody else out there? Anybody else want to play and send me a message? Be part of the podcast? Whether you do or not, thanks again for listening. Now, if you would like to support the podcast, I would really appreciate it. I do need help and support. So you could go to Patreon. You could sign up there, just pledge $1 amount. You could cap it at whatever you're willing to donate per month. You'll get bonus episodes and behind the scenes content there. And if you or someone you love is currently struggling with grief, despair, apathy, fear, anger, pride, or any of these other negative emotions that block those feelings of peace, contentment, and joy, start by examining the stories that you tell yourself about what's going on in your world. And if you'd like help examining those stories and reframing them to be more accurate, more balanced, to be more true, where you're not just focusing on certain things and ignoring other things, you're telling a complete story, and you need help with that, shoot me an email at infantsonthrones@gmail.com, and we can schedule a free 30-minute consultation to see if making me your personal life coach would be a good fit for you. And once again, I hope you enjoyed this 2-part series on anger, and thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.
Put down the weapons that you use against yourself. You don't need them anymore. Lay down the weapons that you use against the world. We don't need another war. Put down the weapons that you use against yourself.
Hi, this is Hillary.
Matthew, Ryan,
Carol,
Keith,
Ashley, and I like to play bingo online while listening to Infants on Thrones.
You can comment on this episode on the website, infantsonthrones.com.
And if you really like what you hear, give the Quorum a 5-star rating and write a short review on iTunes.
I did. Anyone for the closing prayer?
My worst crime is an inside job. Dark thoughts taking over like an inside mob. I tune into the scene between the eyes and take a breath.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.
I sit still and watch the thoughts float past me. Never mind the future, never mind what the past be. I like to jump and let the universe catch me. Free fall, watch the beauty blow past me. I keep my pockets light, destination in sight. Keep my actions elevated to compassionate heights. I'm walking past the fight, laying down onto the night. Choosing love when I pick up this mic. So